Hello friends, welcome back to Digitalk. In this session, I am going to cover how we can configure the JDBC based transaction logs. Okay, but before that, I will explain you in simple way what exactly is a transaction. And we have a two kind of a transaction. One is the local transaction, and second is the distributed transactions, where I have seen multiple confused engineers. Okay, and let me correct the spelling. So, distributed transaction also called the XA transactions. Okay, and what is the meaning of that one? And there is a term called two-phase commit in the distributed transactions, where people get confused. Okay, so I will explain you all these things in a simple way. Okay, so that you can understand transactions, distributed transactions easily. Okay, and there are multiple situations when we know that when your WebLogic server get crashed, and after the recovery of your server, your transactions get recovered, right? Whatever been in progress when your server was got crashed. So how it works? So it's all due to the distributed transactions and two-phase commit properties. Okay, so let me first explain you what exactly is the transactions logs, and then the difference between local and distributed transactions. Okay, so we have two kind of it transactions long. The default one is the file base. Okay, so that means whenever your server get crash, and when we say that when we start the server, it automatically recover all the transactions that has been failed when it was crashed. So how it recover the transactions? There has to be something. Your server should know about the state of your transactions when it was crashed. Okay, so that it can pick up from there and then recover your transactions. So for that, what happen is that whenever your servers do any kind of a transactions, it write all the transactions log in a file. Okay, the by default it is a file base. Okay, and it write in a file all the transactions to know the state of each transactions when it is recovered. The default location is you go to your domain servers folder. Inside servers we have a server folders with the name of each and every server. Go to your server folder, then data, store, and default. So this is the location of the default file based transaction logs. I will show you where exactly we configure in the console. Okay, but apart from that, if you need to configure for the JDBC based transactions log, where you have a very highly available database with high performance. Okay, so it's good to have the transactions log in the JDBC based file stores, database transaction stores. Okay, so for that we can configure it with the JDBase, which I am going to explain you in this session. Okay, so let me explain you what exactly is a transactions. Okay, so transaction I will explain you with an example. Okay, for example, let's take example of e-commerce, maybe Amazon, where the people are buying multiple items online, so they book the order. So once the order is booked, okay, there are multiple things get executed in the backend. So we get the email of the order, we get it with the text as well, and multiple times we get the messages on the WhatsApps as well as soon as we book the order, right? And once the order is booked, it gets saved in the Amazon database. Okay, then your message or the order has to be sent to your product vendor, because there are multiple vendors. So whatever the product that you have booked, it has to go to the particular vendor for the information. Okay, then you will have an inventory management system where you need to update the inventory. It is either with the Amazon or maybe it with the vendors. Okay, then you will have a logistic partners, you will have a courier partner. So there are multiple stakeholders are involved in a single order, right? So that means when we initiate a particular order from the Amazon or maybe from any of the e-commerce website, okay, there are multiple transactions initiated in the background, correct? So now the multiple transactions that is getting initiated in the background, that could be in a single database. But specifically when we talk about the enterprise, it shouldn't be a single database, because there are multiple stakeholders are involved. Okay, they are completely different organizations. They have their own systems, they have their own software, they are developing different languages, they may be using the different database, and they may be using the different applications. So that means it is a scattered system of different technologies, different databases. And that means the data which is generating from a single order, it is getting span across the multiple systems, between the multiple database, between the multiple other applications, that is scattered across the various enterprise business or the organizations or the users. right? Similarly, if I talk about the example of supply chain, where you have a manufacturing unit, your manufacturing need the raw materials from the raw material providers. You will have a retail outlet where the customer buy the items. Then you have a multiple warehouses. You have a sales team on the ground who completely take care of the customer demands and the demand of the products. Then they inform the manufacturing unit who coordinate with the raw material providers for the materials, and then we have a logistic partner for the delivery of the products either to warehouse or to the customers. So again, in a supply chain, there could be multiple stakeholders. Okay, there could be multiple stakeholders, multiple different organizations. Those are operating the different software, different databases, right? So that means a single communication or with respect to a particular products or the some multiple products. Okay, this is getting transferred between multiple applications, multiple database, between the multiple stakeholders and the multiple organizations or business units, right? So these kind of an information that is flowing, okay, within the multiple stakeholders, different organizations, business units, multiple databases, multiple, maybe it could be a JMS system, it could be MQ series from the IBM, it could be RabbitMQ, ActiveMQ, it could be any system, right? Because we don't know the third party organizations what they have internally implemented in their organization according to the requirements, right? So these kind of a transactions where we have a multiple uh, sources, or you can say the multiple targets involved in a single transaction, it is called the distributed transactions, because your transaction is scattered around the multiple systems. Now local transaction is simple, where you have a single system. Okay, for example, maybe you have your employees database, okay, where you are storing the complete end-to-end information of your employees. So it is not going to interact with any of the outer system. You have just maintaining the information of your employees in a single database. So this could be a local transactions. Okay, so whenever you are doing any kind of a transactions, for example, you are updating the designation of an employee in the database, you are updating the address of an employee in database, contact number. So these kind of information is a single, where you have a single data source is involved, which is called the local transactions. And these kind of a transactions are called the distributed transactions, where we have a multiple systems are involved. Okay, so now let us talk about the distributed transactions, which is also called the XA transactions. So this XA is an XA transaction, which is also called the distributed transaction. This comes from the X, which is called the X Open XA standard. So this is specifically a standard, specifically in terms of the distributed transactions. Okay, so the full form of XA is extended architecture. So either you can say distributed transactions or XA transactions, it's same. Okay, so if you have configured anytime the data source, then you will see there are different kind of a database drivers are listed there, right? Non-XA and XA. So okay, so this is the difference when you are going to have a local system, okay, which is where you don't have a multiple data source systems in a transactions, so you can go with a non-XA driver. But if we have a distributed transactions involved in your application, so you always go with the XA drivers, because XA drivers support the XA distributed transactions. Okay, so now inside that you have another term which is called the two-phase commit. Okay, so what exactly is a two-phase commit? Is very simple. If you understand properly what exactly distributed transactions, where I said you have a multiple systems are involved, okay, then you can easily understand the two-phase commit as well. Okay, right. So now let me talk about a scenario. Okay, if suppose that, as I said, you have in a single e-commerce order, you have a multiple applications database are involved of the multiple stakeholders. Suppose the customer has booked the order. After booking the order, okay, order is saved in the Amazon database. But at that time when the order booked, your product vendor application wasn't available, or maybe it is suddenly get crashed, or maybe your inventory management system get crashed, or maybe your logistic partner applications were not available, or your courier partner applications were not available. So what will happen? Your order is booked, it is saved in the Amazon database, but your product vendor is not aware about that one. Your inventory management system is not aware about that one. Your logistic partner may not be aware about that one, or your courier partner will not be aware about that one. So what will happen? It will be cause an inconsistent state of an order. Okay, your customer will get worried about his or her order. Okay, and because the information may not be there with the logistic partner, maybe with the courier partner, so it will not be get delivered to you because they do not have any information about this particular product. Similarly, if your order is booked, inventory management system will not update the number of items in the order, because this system is not aware about the this order book, right? So what will happen? this will cause the inconsistencies. Similarly, if we go about the supply chain, okay, when there is a demand that is getting generated from the sales on the ground, it has to reach to the manufacturing unit, and manufacturing unit has to coordinate with the raw material providers immediately. So if suppose that the sales has generated some demand which reached to the manufacturing unit, but at the same time your raw material providers some system was not available. Okay, so what will happen? The demand will get generated, but your raw material provider, if do not have the information on time of respect to that order, okay, then again it will cause us some inconsistencies in the complete chain, right? So that means when we talk about the distributed transactions where you have a multiple distributed database or data sources are involved in the transaction that need to be updated at the same time. If an order is getting booked, then all the system has to save the data at the same time. That means every system should aware about that one, right? So that means there has to be a very detailed coordination between all the systems when a transaction is initiated, right? So this is called the two-phase commit. That means when a transaction is initiated in the distributed system, then each and every source or the target system should update it at the same time, right? And suppose that if your order is getting booked and if any of the system is not available at that moment, okay, then the complete order should be rejected to avoid any kind of inconsistencies among the different data sources which is there along with the multiple stakeholders, right? So this is called the distributed transactions and two-phase commit. So now what happened in two-phase commit? Your distributed transactions always follow the two-phase commit protocol. So now two-phase commit, that means we have a two-phase in this situation. The first, the transaction manager asks all resource manager if they can commit the transaction. So here you can say this transaction manager, so where WebLogic is working as a transaction manager because all the transactions are getting initiated at the WebLogic level, right? Now all the data sources, okay, or the target systems act as a resource manager. For example, your product vendor has a MySQL database, your inventory system management has a Oracle database, your logistic partner has some other database. Okay, your courier partner may be receiving the rest messages from using the JMS, right? So that means the transaction manager, that means your WebLogic, ask all resources managers if they can commit the transaction. So before committing the transaction, which involve the multiple target system, in the first phase, your WebLogic or the transaction manager will talk to each and every system, okay, to know the availability, if all the systems are available or not, or if you are able to commit the transactions or not. Okay, if any of the system is not available, then your transaction will get rejected at the phase one only. If your transaction manager get the response from all the data sources or all the target databases applications that okay, we are ready to commit the transaction at the same time. So what happen in second phase? If all say yes, it tells them to commit, otherwise it instructed them to roll back. So that means if the response is yes from all the target sources, we are able to commit, then the record will get commit in all the system at the same time. Otherwise, it will be rejected. So this means the access standard define a two-phase commit protocol to coordinate transaction across multiple resource manager. Okay, it enable global transactions that span multiple local resources while maintaining ACID properties. And this is called the ACID properties. That means atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. That means in a distributed transactions, we are completely managing the consistency across all the data sources. Either the complete transaction will get saved or it will get rejected. So this is the distributed transactions and two-phase commit, and all the transactions that recovered when your crash WebLogic server get started, or maybe when you are doing a rolling bounce of your servers, and then when you restart your managed servers and the transaction get recovered, this is just because of the transaction logs. So these transaction logs, as I said, by default maintained in your file based stores. Okay, and what is the location? Let me tell you. So this is the environment. Go to servers, click on your server name. So once you click on server name, go to your configuration and services tab. So inside the services tab, you will see a section called transaction log store. Here you can see the type is default store, right? And if I click on this one, you have two options. the default store, and second is the JDBC. So default is the default setting. If you go with the default store, which is the by default there when you install the WebLogic, then as I said, the location where it is stored the transaction log is go to your domain, servers, click on your server name, and then data, and then store, and then default. So this is a DAD file which is storing your transaction log data, right? So now how to configure your database log transaction logs. So here if I click on this one, you can see here we have option called JDBC. So if I select the JDBC, so here we have to select the corresponding data source, right? Because if we are going to change it to JDBC, that means we want our transactions logs to be stored in database, right? So for that, we need a data source, right? Because your WebLogic can contact with the data source database with the help of data source, right? And if we say that our data is going to be stored in the database, so we need a data source. So first requirement is we have to configure a data source. Then we will change it to the JDBC, and here we are going to select the corresponding data source. Okay, and here is the prefix name. So prefix name in the sense, if we are going to store our data in the database, so what does it mean? It is going to store in some table, right? We store the data in the database in tables. So the very first requirement is we need a data source which will reach to the database, right? Here WebLogic will reach to the database for storing and retrieving the transaction logs from the database. And since it need to be stored in some table, so a table will be created automatically for you once you will restart your server after configuration, and this will be the prefix of your database table. So whatever the table that is get created in your database by default when you restart your services after configuration, okay, the table name probably will get with the name of your managed server, but before that one it will add a prefix. So whatever the prefix that you are going to get here, okay, this prefix is going to add in a table. So this is all you need to do. So let me show you quickly. Okay, so first what I will do, I will go to the services data sources. So here I need to configure a generic data source. Okay, so this is the first requirement. The data source should be generic. Okay, for your JDBC transaction log. So I will go with the default name, whatever you are seeing here. Okay, and let me click on next. So here we have to select the driver. Okay, so I am going to select the thin instance connections. Next. So here you have to make sure that uncheck this option which is called support global transactions, okay? Because the data source that you need to configure for the storing the transaction log, it should not support the global transactions. If you enable this one, and once you will go for the configuration, okay, in the draw box, you will not see the data source name if this option is enabled. So make sure support global transaction is disabled, okay? And this condition specifically you can see in the Oracle documentation as well, okay, that I will show you. So here are the configuration guidelines. So here you can see you cannot use a data source that is configured to use an XA JDBC driver. So that means you can't select a driver XA JDBC driver, and if it is configured for the support global transactions, right? This is another rule. So let me click on next here. So here we have to provide the database name. So let me give the name of my database. It's ORCL PDB, and here I have to give the system which is the local host, and let me give the password here. Okay, here's a generic way how we create the data source in our WebLogic. So let me click the test configuration. It is successful. Click on next. And this data source need to target specifically to the server on which you are going to configure the transactions log. Okay, so we are going to have the transaction log for server 1. So let us click on finish. Okay, so now we have a data source which we have targeted to the server 1. Okay, and now we have to go to our servers again, then server 1 and services. And now I can select on this is JDBC. Okay, so once you click on JDBC, then you can able to see here the data source which we have configured. If you will enable the global transaction option which I have shown to you, then you will not able to see data source here. So let me select this data source here, and I'm going with the default prefix name. Right, now click on save. Okay, you are getting a message that one item must be restarted for this one. So now I have to restart the manage server 1. So let me go to servers, control, and let me first shut down it. Okay, so once we will start it, okay, we can able to see it this table in our database, and along with that we can see it in the your logs as well. Because once you will restart the server after enabling it, it will automatically create a table in your database for storing the transaction logs. Okay, and let me quickly log in here and let me show you as well. So I will log into my database. Okay, at the rate my it is running on localhost on port 1521, and the service name is ORCL PDB. So I am connected with the system user because I have used the same user to connect from the data source. So here I have to select the table name. Okay, so select table name from all tables where table name like. So what is the like we have to give? We the prefix that we have given during the configuration. Okay, so the prefix was starting from T log, something like that one. Okay, so let me first go here. It is now shut down. So now I have to restart it, right? So let me start it. Okay, so once you will start it, after that it is going to create the table in your database. Okay, and it should be visible in your logs as well. So once it is running, I will show you in the logs and then I will show you in the database as well, right? So let me go to the logs location as well. So this is server 1 logs, and then this is the log file. Let me go at the end. Let me see if it is still creating or it is created. Okay, so now here you can see the store name, right? And see the JDBC store. This is the name, will be opened with connection caching policy default and will keep to database session. So that means our database has automatically created a particular JDBC transition store table, right? And let me see if it is created in the database as well. Let me first check the status of the server. It is running. So now if I run this query, right? So here you can see this is the store that has been created. And this is the same store which we have given the prefix here. If I go to service and if I show you, this is the prefix name. So if I let me show you again, right? So this is the tlog underscore digiserver underscore 1. This is a prefix which is added from here. And after that suffix will be WL store. So here I have another transaction log store as well, which is for the another server. Okay. So this is how we configure our JDBC based transaction log store and the complete detail of the transactions, your distribute transactions, and two-phase commit. If you need this documentation, then you can reach us. You can just write to us at digitalk.fmw at gmail.com. In fact, if you have, sorry, this is at the rate. So, in fact, if you have any technical queries or any kind of a queries with respect to the middleware, not specific to WebLogic, to DevOps, anything, you can reach us at it on this email ID. Okay, we'll try to respond as soon as possible. Thank you.